Hey folks, today's jewelry store training is all about turning service into sales. Now, so many independent jewelers throughout the world have started in the service business. What I mean by that is they were goldsmiths and they had a repair shop and had a lot of people coming into their doors having prongs retipped and rings sized, etc. And so what we've done is that we've had the tendency to build the business based on the service. Well, the reality happens where we end up having a business that is very much based on service and our whole cash flow is all about service. And we're wondering, how do we start selling these people diamonds? I know several jewelers who say, hey, that's all we do is repair the fine jewelry that they buy somewhere else. How can we get more of those sales? And so that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am not against repairs. I love repairs. As a matter of fact, if you're a David Geller fan, which I am, you know that you can have a very profitable business with repairs. But the thing is that the average jewelry store has about 5,000 transactions in a year. Now, if the average sale is $100, your total sales are $500,000 in sales. Whereas if your total sales are, say, $1,000, not a total sale, but your average sale is $1,000, now you have a $5 million store. So between there is probably where folks want to be. I would imagine that's where you'd want to be, and preferably on the higher end of that. So what we need to do is, hey, thank the Lord that we have people walking through our door giving us money, be it for repairs, watch batteries, etc., or charms. If you're in the Pandora business, you know you have an extremely high transaction count and probably a low dollar average ticket. And so the challenge that we have is, especially with repairs, we're doing twice, sometimes 3 times the amount of work, because how many times do we have to touch that piece? When we take it in, when we deliver it, and with the goldsmiths, of course, many times in between. And if you don't have in-store goldsmiths, you're sending it out, so you're touching it more because there's quite a bit of transaction or physical touching of the piece that you got to do there. So the essence is that we really need to look at ways to start selling these people something. So we need, number one, to make sure that if we have a high transaction count, such as repairs, we need to make sure we're making money on repairs. Now remember, people on average don't shop repairs. They go to places that they trust, and they trust you. How many times have you heard, I don't let anybody touch this ring except you guys? And then they lick their finger and pull it off their finger. And so hey, that's great. That is a great testimony to your integrity and to your quality as a jeweler. So that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But let's make sure we're making money on those repairs. Like I said, if you're a David Geller fan, make sure that your edge is updated with the Geller pricing. Or if not, look up David Geller and find out what you should be charging for repairs. Because remember, on average, people do not shop repairs. That's on average. That's for the most part. Next, let's look at ways that we can start bringing those repair business people into sales. Now, just to have some ideas. The idea, though, that I want to create with you today, or the idea that I want to get across, is that you need to have a good discussion. First of all, realize that if you're a high transaction count, low profit margin, a high repair kind of store and selling a lot of charms with low average tickets, we need to look and we need to realize that this is happening. Number one, we're working like crazy. And number two, we need to start doing something about it. The way we start doing something about that is we're going to make a list of things that you can do to start turning these things over. then we're going to start changing our little habits every single day with these actions, because that's all it really is. Success is just good practices done over and over again. All right? So let's look at some ways that we can turn service into sales. First of all, I've heard of many stores have very clearly defined counters with signage. This is where the repair area is. This is where our diamonds are. This is where our Pandora or our Camellia charms are. Have everything very clearly defined so the customers need to know where they're going to go when they walk in the store. But Another thing that has worked for people very well for jewelers very well, is that we have specialized people for those particular things. I know a jeweler down in Georgia, they have their 2 or 3 Pandora people behind those cases. They don't go anywhere else in the store. They'll go help someone out from time to time if they refuse to come over by them. But for the most part, they have their Pandora people, and then they have their repair specialist, and you go to him or her for that. Then we have our diamond specialists and our fine jewelry specialists. So now a lot of jewelry stores may not have that luxury of having that deep of a staff to do that type of thing. But if we start looking at ways that we can start channeling individual people in individual areas in the store, you're going to start specializing, and I promise you're going to see some neat returns on that type of activity. Okay. Next thing is the good old Shane Decker approach, and that's show something awesome all the time with every single customer. One thing I love that Shane Decker says is, let me show you something I got in the safe. And you create intrigue and you create a romance with that. Get in the habit of showing something that is a wow piece to every single customer, whether they're doing a watch battery or they're looking for a 3-carat diamond. The other thing, too, is we're never going to leave those people alone. Have a buddy system. So if they come in and they've got their prongs that need to be replaced, and now salesperson A takes that back to the goldsmith to show them and say, what do you think? You don't want to leave that customer standing there alone. Have the buddy come in, have salesperson B come in, or the person on deck, and have them start talking to them, engaging with them about the repair. Hey, that diamond, how long have you had that diamond? Great, fantastic. Well, you know what? We can upgrade that if you're ever interested, and just start creating that conversation. Now, we're not talking about high pressure sales here. We're just talking about creating the conversation. And as Shane Decker says, show them a wow piece. Showing them a wow piece will get the conversation going. Either they'll say something like, oh, I would never like anything like that, or, it is our 25th anniversary coming up, or I've always wanted that. So that creates the conversation. Now, what are we doing here? It's just a physical habit that we get into every day with every customer. Show them a wow piece. Okay. Next thing is, have your service counter near your diamonds, or at the counter where people typically come for repairs or to check out. You don't necessarily want to have greeting cards. You don't necessarily want to have low ticket. Put some wow stuff there. Now, it's not going to be under the scratchy glass counter. Make sure it looks really, really nice. And if you got scratchy glass counters, get them out of there and replace them with new glass, okay? Be proud of the stuff that you have in your case. But if you have a lot of people standing in front of one particular counter and you have very low turnover, low profit margin items sitting in front of them, well then, my goodness, let's get some wow stuff in there, okay? Not only that, but it'll be in proximity to you when you need to wow them. And of course, I always condone salesperson B or the buddy system or the up system, so that someone is always engaging with the customer in a non-pushy, non-salesy way, but a conversational starter type of way. Okay. Next, suggest. You have a piece in front of you. It's a mother's ring, and those stones are worn out. They're abraded. The thing is going to fall apart in 2 seconds. Now it's time to suggest. Hey, have you ever thought of? Suggest if you've got a ring and you've got a piece of jewelry that has obviously been loved and worn for 100 million years, maybe it's time to suggest another band on the other side. Did you ever think about having another band on the other side of your engagement ring? You know, I have thought of that a lot. And again, we're starting the conversation by suggesting. And then finally, I just want to summarize this by you can create great profit for your jewelry store by simply changing a little habit every single day with every customer, with every transaction. Also, that could be called your store non-negotiables. These are the things we do every single time with every single customer. So, make a list of the things that you think would be great to start converting some of that service business or some of that charm business into bigger business. You making that decision to do it and then following through with that, holding yourself and each other accountable every single day, I guarantee you it will dramatically change things for your jewelry store. So go out and do it. Next step of action, make a list of those things that you think you can do every single day with every customer to start turning that service into sales. We'll see you next week. Oh, and one more thing. Get this store training in your store via video every single week with my training program just by clicking on the link right below this video.